is Fezzik, and this is Lord Spaz. We're going to be teaching you Polearm 101. So, for a lot of people, polearm is a heavy, what they call war pole affair, where they're going to be manipulating equipment, they're going to be throwing murder chops, manipulating the opponent's body a lot of the time. But the polearm I'm going to be teaching you today is what we call speed pole. It's going to be as light as you can get it, while also not bending very much. Because if you have a pole that bends too much when you throw it, you're unsure where your tip is afterwards, right? It's going to flex, it's going to move around. I want my tip to be exactly where I want it to be when I stop, right? If I come in this way, I don't want it to whack into his face. So we're going to be teaching speed pole. The other main advantage of speed pole over war pole is that you can throw feints and fakes, which are the same thing, really. But with a war pole that's super heavy, you're unable to throw those. But with a speed pole, you can move around to throw feints and fakes much easier. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is how to hold your polearm. You want to have one hand on the far end of the pole and the other a little bit past your shoulder width, both palms down. Sometimes with palm up, you naturally curve upwards when you stab. We're going to avoid that by doing palm down. I would recommend you learn, if both sides feel comfortable to you, left on the back or right on the back, I would recommend you learn with your left arm holding the very back, because this way when you face shieldmen, I need you to get your other equipment. This way when you face shieldmen, you're going to be on their sword side instead of their shield side. So you can agitate the opening there and hang up their sword and shield. All right. So one of the ways you need to start thinking about your polearm is as a lever, right? If I use the polearm this way, I'm not going to be able to control it very well, although I can generate power with my hips and all that. As a lever, I'm able to control the tip of the polearm much better. My pivot point is the middle hand here, and I'm controlling it with this backhand. The tip of the polearm is going to go opposite of where my backhand goes. So make sure you're thinking of your pole as a lever, and we're going to get through this just fine. All right, so there are 3 stances in polearm that you need to know of. The first one is called the roof. It's where your polearm is up towards the sky. This is where murder strikes come from, if you're comfortable with those. Some blocks are also going to come from here. But for the most part, what this does is it's very intimidating to an enemy a lot of the time. If I raise up here, it's also more difficult for them to gauge the range sometimes, as opposed to here where he knows that he has a foot before it hits. Up here, he's maybe a little bit unsure of where this pole comes down. The next stance we have is called the ox, and this is going to be parallel to the ground. You're going to bend your knees, you're going to lower your center of gravity, and it's going to go at your waistline towards the enemy. Most of your shots are going to be coming from here, because this is still ox and this is still ox. You can manipulate shields very easily this way because you have a power base in your legs, and your stabs have a lot more power from here. Finally, you have what's called the plow, where it looks like you're plowing a field. Obviously, your leg shots are generally going to come from here, and also most of your blocks are going to be coming from plow. Moving on to our blocks. It's not easy to turn pages when you have gloves on. All right, so moving on to defense with the polearm. If you've heard of the house guard, this is like a poor man's house guard. It's actually exactly like a poor man's house guard, because a rich man or a middle class man may own a house, but all we have is a shanty. So we're going to stay in plow, and we're going to create this shanty, this roof, just a lean-to, the lean-to guard, over our head. And you're going to create a wall when you block with this. So if he's going to go to my side from here, I'm going to push out to my side. I'm going to try and meet him as far away from my body as possible. Now ideally I'm not going to be this close, but when you're blocking against the sword, you're going to have to be. If he's coming to my other side, I'm going to push over here. And you're creating this wall in front of your body to block. You can even push out with one arm to block further from your body if you need to. And in fact, when you are armed, that's going to be how you're blocking for the most part. All right. So the other thing that you need to know when you're being defensive with your pole is that most all enemies want to charge you. They need to get inside your range because they're going to lose the fight if you keep them at a range that you can hit and they cannot. So if we know that our enemies are charging at us, we need to be prepared for that. One way to prevent them from reaching you when they charge you is, instead of going straight backwards as they come at you, you want to go backwards and to the side diagonally. If you're against a sword and shield, you want to go backwards and to the side of their shield, so that you're creating that much more room between their sword and your body. If I'm constantly changing direction as I go backwards, he will also have to constantly change direction as he comes at me, slowing his momentum. The other thing I can do is harass with shots or push on the shield to help reset and arrest his momentum, to give me more time in that comfort zone of where I can hit him and he can't hit me. All right, remember that you want to keep your pole as a point between you and the enemy at all times. If I'm going to go for his an attack over here, I don't want to stay for very long on this side like this. I need to make sure that I bring back to keep my pole between me and the enemy at all times. All right, we're going to go over pole versus the various combos very quickly. First off, we have pole versus polearm. So in pole versus polearm, gauging range is very important. If you have a shorter pole, you're going to need to know that you need to be in that range where you can still hit the enemy polearm, so that you're making sure you're not in their sweet spot where they can hit you and you can't hit them. It's best to play defensive a lot of the time when you're in pole v pole. Wait for them to throw a shot, swat it away or maneuver it, and then throw a shot of your own. Typically, slashes are easier for poles to block. If I'm coming into the side, yeah, sure, you're coming to the side. Typically, slashes are easier for poles to block. So a lot of pole v pole, your enemy's going to go for stabs on you. You want to be able to swat those away, especially if you're at a distance where they're going to have to do it one-armed. It's much easier for you to manipulate their equipment at that point. So you swat it away, and then you retaliate with a shot of your own. But remember that whenever you stab one-armed, that's going to be their tactic as well. So you need to make sure your hand is ready to come in and grab that pole to keep control again. All right, one good way to create an opening against another polearm is to do the pump fake stab. Because if everyone's aware that stabs are the easiest way to get them, then that's something you need to know when you're faking. That's something that they're going to be trying to be ready for. So I'm going to pump fake a stab on this side under here to make him maneuver his equipment. I'm going to pull this back, that's why it's called the pump fake. And as I pull this back to get out from under him pushing my equipment, he's going to keep this opening right here and you go in for it. That's a pump fake stab. We're going to use that for a few different things. The final thing is, when you're in pole v pole, put up in your stance, you want to try and stay on the inside. If I'm here and I throw a shot and he wins here, he's on the inside because my shots are divided by his pole. So if I'm fighting him, I want to be here. I want to be on the inside so that my shots when I come up are going to hit his arm or his body, and his shots, if he's coming up from this side, the outside, are going to hit nothing because I can control how far that is, right? All right, so now we're going to do pole versus Florentine. This is probably the easiest matchup for a pole. Florentines are very easy to stab. So just like with pole arms, they're often expecting stabs, and you can do pump fake stabs or pump fake slashes. The pump fake slash is very good because if I'm pumping a slash here, or a stab here, you can see that he brings his swords together and exposes his arm. So I pump that stab, I pull out, and I can swat his arm and then swat his leg on the way back down. It's a very good shot against Florentine. Really with Florentines, you just want to make sure that you're playing aggressive at your range and backing up and constantly resetting. It's very difficult for them to push in on you. It's hard for them to block their legs. They have to move much further down. So constantly throw shots at them. They don't have as much defense as sword and boards do. So we're gonna move on to pole versus sword and board. Sorry, we're breezing through this. Feel free to slow the YouTube down so that I sound that much more like James Earl Jones. So this is the hardest matchup for polearm. It's best to line up against a sword and board so that you are holding your pole on the side of their sword here. That way I can hit his sword arm or try and poke this stab. Can we swap places? So I'm holding with my left hand at the bottom here against a typical right-handed sword and boarder. And this way when I'm attacking him, he's blocking with his sword. If I'm going for legs, he has to block with his sword. I have this little pocket right here with his shoulder And when I'm running from a sword and board, again, I'm going to be running away into his sword side, keeping his shield between me and his sword, right? That way he has to go over his shield to attack me.
Running to his shield side.
Yeah, running to his shield side. Correct. All right, so a lot of sword and boarders expect leg shots versus poles because a lot of new pole fighters will always be going for leg shots on sword and board. So again, like with all fakes, we want to use expectations to our advantage. And faking leg shots is a great way to open up kill shots on the shoulder or the arms. If I'm faking down here towards the leg, he's going to drop, and I can pop back up and get shoulders. And once your enemy gets used to that, you can do the exact opposite, where you fake low, go high, and they bring up and come low again, or the opposite. That maneuver is really easy. Swap with me again real quick. We're tracing their shield with our polearm, just making semicircles, and both of this motion are a shot. So if I come down like this, that semicircle's a shot, and if I come up like this, that semicircle's a shot. So that semicircle is a feint that you can turn into shots, and all you're doing is tracing the line of their circular shield, unless they have a heater, in which case, I mean, what can you do? All right.
Nothing.
Nothing. They win.
It is your ultimate matchup, the one you cannot win.
All right. So we're gonna move on from this, and we're gonna talk about one-armed pole real quick. The first rule of one-armed pole is one that many people mistake. A lot of people, when they're armed with their pole, they put it under their armpit because they feel that they have that power, which you do. Your strikes are going to be more powerful from under your armpit, but your shots are too predictable. So if I'm throwing from here, I have 3 shots, right? I have my side to sides here, little powerful jabs, and then you have that thing where they come out and they try and stab you. The issue is we never want to be predictable to our enemy. So I would recommend that when you are using one-armed pole, you keep your hand here at the back or a little bit higher up if you need to keep control of it. We're going to go over some drills at the very end that will help you improve your wrist strength so you can do this a little bit better. But all that we're missing in one-armed pole is our fulcrum for our lever, right? Our pivot point. So what we're going to do instead is create pivot points for one-armed pole. So if I need to slash a Jerry from here, I can create pivot points with my hip or with my leg to gain that same momentum that I would have otherwise with this, right? I don't need to use my armpit to keep power. I can pull it with my leg. I can come around here and use the rotating of my shoulder right here as the pivot point to throw shots like that that'll come in slashes. And the other good thing about one-armed pole is that those stabs that are really not coming out very far from here can have that far momentum again and that far push. Sorry, Jerry. So it's important to remember with one-armed pole that you don't want to be predictable. You don't want to be doing this. You also need to know that you do have less control over your polearm. So a lot of your enemies are going to try and swat it away. You need to be constantly moving backwards, and if you're keeping your pole on the ground, be ready for them to try and swat it. Pull it backwards towards you, or pull it up to prevent them from doing that. And then finally with one-armed pole, all of the blocks that we learned in the shanty guard, the lean-to guard, work very well with this, right? This is a pretty strong slash defense here. Someone's slashing at my side, I can push out both ways with this. Makes a good wall, a good shanty around you to move. And you can attack back with these poke stabs as you go backwards. But remember that your hand should be fluid on your polearm when you need it to be. All right. Real quick, we're going to talk about polearm versus team, and then we're going to do the drill for the wrist strengthening and call it a day. So polearm versus team is very similar to how an archer behaves. An archer is looking to attack enemies that aren't paying attention. An archer is typically going to be fighting diagonally from themselves. They're going to be shooting from the side of the fight into the center or into enemies that aren't paying attention. We're going to be doing relatively the same. We might be in the center of the battle line, but we're going to be attacking people that aren't paying attention. The person right in front of us is most often going to be paying attention to us. So that means we're going to be attacking those that are diagonal from us on both sides. You want to be between 2 allies, most preferably between 2 shields. And remember that if you have 2 right-handed sword and boarders, that means there's going to be a sword on this side and a shield on this side. So preferably you don't want to fight right here because your sword and his pole, your pole and their sword might get tangled up. So if you fight like this, you're going to have a shield on this side and give their sword room to breathe. All right, another great thing for pole and teamwork is to create openings for your allies. You can use your pole to engage legs and force enemy shieldmen to lower their shields, thus creating openings in the upper body for your swordmen. Or you can speak with your swordmen and have them create openings for you to get leg shots. All right, finally, we're going to go over a drill for increasing your wrist strength so that you can do one-armed pole a little bit better and have control of your pole in general much better. Exactly. The way that this drill works, you're going to hold your pole out as far, you go ahead and do it. You're going to hold your pole out as far from your body as possible and as far back on the pole as possible. If you're unable to hold your pole out for a while at the very back of the pommel, you can start the drill up here. You can even start the drill with a regular sword if your wrist strength is poor. But what we're going to do is we're going to do 3, and once you get used to 3, we're going to do 5 little circles right here, little circles going clockwise, 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to widen those circles to be medium-sized circles going clockwise, 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to do large, about shield size or encircling their body size circles, 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to go backwards the opposite way. And eventually you're going to be able to do that with the bottom of the pole arm here. The objective for this, though, is make sure that you're not resting this on your forearm or you're not going to be gaining that strength. You want to be sure that you're only using your wrist strength to do this exercise. 1, 2, 3, little circles, then medium, then large, and then you're going to go back the opposite way. You're going to swap direction. 3 large, 3 medium, and then 3 small. And that's a drill that can increase your wrist strength for fighting with polearm. All right, thank you. This has been Fezzik's Polearm 101. Thank you, Jerry, for your help. Lord Spaz, and God bless.